Hey everyone, I'm here with Tod Bolsinger for a quick conversation for the long haul of leadership. And we're going to talk about a quote from Lisa Lamb. Lisa was a guest on episode 161, Preaching for Deep Connection. And here's what she said. She said, an abdication of leadership is also an abuse of leadership. An abdication of leadership is also an abuse of leadership. Tod, let me just toss it to you. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's so interesting because, so Lisa is a preacher and she's a preaching professor. And so she's very, very aware of the power of the preaching moment. And for so many of us who have been preachers, who are just used to people who sit down and listen to us, we start assuming that what leadership is having position and power and having, initials after our names and titles and heavy furniture and corner offices, and that leadership is something that you are given responsibility for. I actually think leadership is a skill set where you take on responsibility, where you literally say, I think when a group of people get together and say, there's something broken in the world and I'm willing to be part of the solution, who wants to join me? That's a leader. And so when people abdicate that moment of looking at the need, then you're abusing whatever agency you have. And so especially when a person abdicates the responsibility for seeing pain and seeing a problem in the world and abdicates, who doesn't step in, doesn't take responsibility, there's a kind of abuse, because what happens in that moment is that they leave a person who's in need to suffer. And in this sense, the Good Samaritan story is a powerful story by Jesus, an unexpected leadership story. A person who says, I'll take responsibility. The leader is the one who would say, I'll take responsibility, and I want to gather other people around us to make sure that this highway stops being a place where people get abused or get mugged, right? And so I think there's something about taking responsibility rather than assuming that leadership is some kind of status or authority that requires us to think about.
Yeah. So as you're saying this, what came to mind was, what would the opposite of this statement be, right? So taking responsibility in leadership is also, what might we say, healthy leadership, or
taking I would say taking responsibility for a place where there's pain is taking leadership. Leadership is convening people. It's more than just you. It's like saying, I'm going to step into this, but I'm going to invite other people to step into this so we can make a difference in the midst of the pain of the world. And so when you step in and you say, hey, not only am I going to care for this person who got mugged on the road, but we're going to gather together to make sure this becomes a safer road. You're giving leadership. What it also means is if you're not willing to change the system, you're not willing to engage in the bigger thing, you're abdicating a leadership moment at that moment. And you're abusing the fact that you have this convening power, this power to make this happen.
And the statement that Lisa made was in the context of a conversation about preaching. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts in terms of how to engage, in your preaching, take responsibility in your preaching. Do you have any thoughts on that, having been a preacher and probably having to do that at times?
So I mean, I was raised in the time in the 20th century where, as a young preacher, where people thought preaching was leadership. Like preaching is like standing up in front of a group of people and casting a vision is leadership. I actually think preaching serves leadership. Preaching is about actually opening people's eyes, calling them to the reality, helping them see the work of God in the world. And then leadership is where we respond to that by bringing change. We respond to that with transformation. And so more and more I have said that, leadership is not, in a post-Christendom world, in a changing world, leadership is not just standing up and talking. It's not just casting a vision and inspiring. Leadership in this world is about using the opportunity you have to speak and to proclaim and to open the scriptures to call people to take responsibility for the change, and that's ultimately what leadership is. So in that sense, it's a much more collaborative experience
Yeah.
where the preacher is not necessarily the leader. The preacher is a proclaimer, a prophet, a
Right.
priest, an exeges. The leader might be the person who says, so in response to this, here am I, Lord, send me. And who will go with me?
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love that. Here's the quote one more time. Lisa Lamb said, "An abdication of leadership is also an abuse of leadership."